Invincible. 3.
Here are our scores for Invincible Season 4 out of 10. 3, 2, 1, 7 out of 10.
8? 8.5?
I do think that Season 4 was the worst season of the show.
No. Season 2, no?
I think that Season 4 has higher highs, but it is more of a mess. And I think that a lot of people are criticizing the final episode, and I think that some of the criticisms are very fair, and I think some of the criticisms are not so fair. But I did think that the latest episode, the final episode of the season, was one of the weaker ones of the season.
The final episode?
Yeah. And therefore, I think the first 3 episodes of the season are not great. And then I think episode 4 is the worst episode of the entire show. Herm. Right? The episode with Donnie.
Yeah, maybe it is worse than season 2. It's definitely worse
Damien
than...
Darkblood, yeah.
Definitely, I like 1 and 3 better, for sure.
Yes.
And then I haven't seen season 2 in a long time, so I wouldn't be able to tell you. But I do think the highs, the Viltrumite War, Thrag, Thetis, all that, I think that will push it past season 2, in my opinion. But again, I love all the seasons.
Of course, so do I.
Yeah, I mean, the show's freaking amazing. But also, this season did have a lapse of no Cecil, Debbie, Eve.
Yep.
You know? So that's not... Like, that doesn't mean they did anything wrong. It's not like they wrote anything bad. It was just like, we're missing some characters that I like.
Absolutely.
You know, so maybe I'll like it a little less. That's not, it's not a terrible thing. Yeah, the last episode, I kind of went in knowing it would be more chill because I feel like we had already had the climax.
Absolutely.
So
I agree with that.
I went in kind of knowing it. I was just happy to see Debbie and Cecil again.
Yeah, like, see, some people are complaining about the PTSD moments being fake and like faking you out because you think it's real action is about to happen and then real action doesn't happen, and people are upset that there wasn't any action in the final episode. I didn't need action in the final episode. The things that I didn't like about the final episode is some of the resolution, some of the way the story is going with Omni-Man and Debbie really angers me, and some of the resolution with I'm ready. like there's no Oliver in the final 2 episodes, all that stuff. Like, it's just kind of like Paul and her just broke up off screen, and the resolution with Eve and the frustratingness of just fucking say it.
I know. Yeah, when he arrived, I hate when they do that. When we've been waiting 4 or 5 episodes for y'all to talk about you being pregnant, and then you're gonna like wait another half episode. That frustrates me as I'm watching it.
Absolutely. So episode 1 I thought was a good start, strong return of these characters, love it, whatever. Then episode 2, that's with all the Alan and Omni-Man stuff. You get some really strong stuff like the Viltrumite backstory.
Right at the start.
But then it's also coupled with, is this really what we should be doing right now? Then episode 3, second worst episode in the season, could easily be the worst episode in any season. That's Liu the dragon comes back, and Oliver and Titan is back, and I just don't care about some of those storylines. And then episode 4, the Damien Darkblood episode, is just the worst episode of the entire show. Then episode 5 is great. We're at war, we're going to war, all that stuff. Episode 6 is even better. And episode 7 is great. And then episode 8, it's better than some of the bad episodes of the season, but it still fell a little flat for me. So that's my reasoning for it being the weakest season. That being said, still loved it. Still loved it. Some of the highest highs of any of the seasons are in those episodes 5, 6, and 7.
There has to be a worse season of the best show of all time. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You know
right.
what I mean?
And it very well may be my favorite show of all time after this season. I've been saying that kind of since season 3.
We love Invincible.
Love Invincible. And I'm so excited for the future. I think they've set up such great things. I think that the Viltrumites on Earth is just fabulous.
It's so fascinating.
And I will say, I've been dogging on the final episode a lot. Lee Pace's performance as Thrag in that final episode, and that conversation they have, is spectacular. The turmoil in his voice, because he hates Mark so much for destroying Viltrum. But he really does see Mark as their savior. Like, he is grateful for Mark. It's so interesting, him talking to Mark versus any other character, because he doesn't respect Oliver as a being at all. And Omni-Man is a traitor, so he hates Omni-Man. Mm-hmm. But, like, Mark, he understands, because that's his planet. Mm. Oh, it's so interesting. And that decision that Mark has to make.
Yeah.
Awful. So good. So great. That's such great writing.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to see what comes next.
Yeah, I think I've gotten a little bit of hate for saying that, like, some of the repetitiveness bothers me
Sure,
a
and I think
little
that's
bit.
fair. And I think this season deals with a lot of it, and it's made worse because it's season 4.
Yeah. Like people were like, because I talked about the fact that Mark's still alive, and they're like, oh, well, the name of the show is Invincible. He's going to keep living. I'm not saying you should kill off your main character. I just kind of want a little bit better explanation of Omni-Man spared him, Anissa spared him, Conquest, we fought him twice, but we also died again, but then somehow still are alive after being beat to death by Omni-Man, and then Conquest, and then we're fighting Thrag, and Thrag just let us live just 'cause. I think a better example. I'm not mad that we're continuing to fight the Viltrums. Like, I know they're the main villain, but having each climax be Mark almost dies as a result of Viltrumite. That's like, so I was trying to explain this, and I think like Harry Potter, the main villain is Voldemort and the Death Eaters. But the climax of every single movie isn't Harry almost dying to a Death Eater or a Voldemort.
Absolutely.
Like, Voldemort's in the first one, but he's kind of on Quirrell.
Yep.
And in the third one, we're dealing with the werewolf and Buckbeak and Aragog and all this stuff. And in the fourth one, that's when Voldemort finally comes back. But in the fifth one, it's Snape. And it's like, so, and...
You're getting these a little confused. We're going to get a lot of comments about it. Sixth one is Snape. Fifth one is still Voldemort, but it's Voldemort versus Dumbledore. The second one is Aragog.
Yeah, so it's different characters, or Dumbledore is the one that dies, not Harry. So I don't know. It would just be like if every Harry Potter movie it was Harry versus a Death Eater or Voldemort, and Harry loses, and by the sixth movie they defeat him again, and then Voldemort's just like, let him live. I'd be like, what?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Voldemort never says let him live.
So
this reminds me of a tweet that I saw. There's a lot of hate for J.K. Rowling for obvious reasons on the internet. But so she gets a lot of hate with story things. And I remember seeing a tweet that was like, that J.K. Rowling is an idiot and didn't plan out the Horcrux thing until like the last couple of books. Uh-huh. Because if she was smart about it, they should have killed a Horcrux in every book.
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
But my argument against that is, do you know how fucking repetitive that would have been if the point of every book is just to kill a piece of this guy's soul?
But yeah, even then, like, the Horcruxes are at least different things.
Sure.
But no. Anyways, I think there's examples of, of what I'm trying to say. But again, I still loved it. I just find some of I find some moments where I'm like, I just kind of go like, again, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But again, like we've said, it's one of the best shows of all time. I literally said that I think Invincible is potentially the best thing that's happened since the podcast has been a thing.
Absolutely. And I had to argue with you Spider-Verse and Superman.
Yeah.
Doesn't get much higher praise than that on this podcast.
And the main thing about Invincible, like, I know there's we've made some complaints about this season. It's the worst, episode, or, people complain about the animation or the repetitiveness or whatever. But, I mean, the main thing that is so amazing about Invincible that will keep me coming back is the characters.
Absolutely.
And the story. Cecil, Debbie, Mark, Eve, Omni-Man, Alan. They're just fun to watch.
Absolutely.
They're just fun to watch.
You've got a project you've been working on.
Yeah, well, people find me condescending whenever I explain things, so, go ahead and call me that. But
can I call you Dr. Parker for this dissertation?
Sure.
I think that would be apt.
Sure.
All right, Dr. Parker, what do you have for us?
So we talked about, and we have talked about on the podcast a couple times now, the Nolan apology tour and Debbie's response to it, and how much we loved it because Debbie just gave him a big middle finger, and we think that's deserved, and we think that's good, and we don't want Debbie and Nolan to get back together.
No.
Now, I'm sure a lot of people know whether that happens or not, and that's the way it seems it's going at the end of this season, and maybe they kind of get back together, maybe they don't. I don't know.
Yes.
But when we talked about that, we got a lot of comments that were like, you just don't understand his character. I can't believe y'all are being so mean to Omni-Man. You're all wrong. Well, I'm trying to preface this and be as kind as I can possibly be. I think it's totally fair.
You're all fucking idiots.
Yes, you all suck balls, dude. And get out of our comment section. I'm just kidding. I think it's totally fair to not like Omni-Man, or at the very least enjoy the episode in which he does his Earth apology tour, and people like Art and Debbie aren't having it, and they tear into him. So here's a few reasons why. We can accept a redemption arc while still thinking he's evil, and we can accept a redemption arc without, for example, wanting Debbie to get back together with him, right? we can accept that that's what's happening with his character, or even being okay with some sort of redemption for him where he's on our side. We like him being on our side. Like, I think that's kind of interesting. Him and Oliver, him and Mark, like the fact that we have him on our side, that's all fine, but we can still be fine with that while also still thinking he's an evil person. We not wanting Debbie to be with the man who said she was ultimately worthless, committed mass murder, lied to her about it, and then beat her son half to death. Like, right? And then the other argument was, like, you just don't understand the character. I am so sick of people using this phrase. I implore you, if you've ever flippantly used this argument against almost anyone, sometimes it actually applies, where someone just doesn't actually understand what someone's doing with the character, and if they do understand that, then maybe they enjoy it a little bit more. But like 99% of the time people use this argument or comment it or type it, it has nothing to do with reality. It is
a great example of reality is Andrew's a not understanding of a Tom Holland Spider-Man character in Homecoming.
I literally wrote that down.
Oh, great. I'm glad you're self-aware.
No. For the exact opposite reason. Thank you for being like our comment section and using your platform to attack me that way. Because it automatically assumes you are better than the other person digesting the media, and like you have some sort of better media cognitive like awareness, and I just don't think that's true. There's some times where it is, but like you can understand a story and still not like it. Alex understands the story of Man of Steel.
It sucks.
He just doesn't like it. You can understand what they're doing with the character. I understand what they're doing with the character in Spider-Man Homecoming. I just don't like the way it manifests itself sometimes, with him losing every single fight or being lame in certain scenes. But I understand what they're doing. I just don't have to like it. Okay, so then people talked about the radicalized indoctrination.
Right. Yes, this is the cream of the crop. This is what we're here for, Andrew.
So
that preamble was nice. Get into the nitty-gritty.
So people, I get it. We can totally understand he was raised on Viltrum. That's the only life he ever knew. To other people, they were like bugs to him. We squash bugs all the time. Like, I get that's a reason, and it's a good one. It's a reason, but it's not an excuse. It's a good reason. It's not a good excuse.
Sure.
There is a difference. There is, at some point, some line, some threshold of how much does that excuse someone.
Yes.
Homelander had a pretty bad upbringing. He was brought up in a lab. He was poked and prodded. He never had a family. Does that excuse everything Homelander's ever done if he decides to apologize in the last few episodes?
Exactly.
No, it doesn't.
And this is. I just want to highlight this because you've been talking, and I'm going to let you finish. But Homelander is irredeemable, not because he isn't going to apologize for what he's doing. It's because of what he's done. Just because Omni-Man is apologizing for what he's done does not mean what Omni-Man has done is a billion times worse than what Homelander's done. Because if you Google Homelander's kill count, it's like 200 people. If you Google Omni-Man's kill count, there are reports that say in the billions.
Yes.
There is no coming back from that.
Yeah. I think as close as you can possibly get to objectively speaking, he's a terrible person. He spent thousands of years conquering planets for the Empire and slaughtering innocents. Yes, he changes and grows to see that the ways of the Empire are evil, but realistically, that's the equivalent of a career criminal being a good person for a few days when you consider how long he's alive or how long he's been living. You know?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So that's one point. I think the indoctrination argument is a reason, not an excuse. And this is the one that really pissed me off because we talked about this when we eventually first got these comments. We were like off camera, like talking about, and it was fun to talk about. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't be allowed to talk about it. If you want to argue in the comments, just be cordial. We're being nice. And I'm gonna try to tackle this one as carefully as I can. But people were comparing Omni-Man to Uncle Iroh, which is in my favorite show of all time.
One of your favorite characters of all time.
I think that's a little ridiculous. And,
of course it's ridiculous.
Here's why. I'm not going to try to comment too much on like war ethics or politics here. Like, that's not my job, so don't take anything I say with like a super like deep level of understanding. I'm just talking about some fictional characters and why I think they're a little different. I'm not trying to make a big worldwide statement on politics or war ethics. But number one, what Uncle Iroh does is not on camera. Okay, so I understand he probably did some stuff, but everything that he did, we have to assume that he did. So there is a level of like assumption that you have to have. We see what Omni-Man does. Second, Iroh was part of an imperial regime that oppressed other nations, 100%. So we can assume he was in war, in battles where people died where they shouldn't have. That is bad.
He 100% has killed people.
People, correct.
Absolutely.
But there's a difference. And also, the only point that we're trying to make with Omni-Man, really, to me, is the people that were directly affected by Omni-Man have the right and the reason to
fucking hate him and not forgive him.
Correct.
In the same way that if Uncle Iroh,
correct,
in a spin-off after Avatar: The Last Airbender,
meets a family.
If he walks into a tea shop and they're like, "We are not serving you. Our son died fighting against your Fire Nation against a battle before Lu Ten died in a battle against you." Uncle Iroh, because he's the best guy ever, would go, "I'm so sorry."
I understand.
Would pay them and would leave.
Yes, I think that if a family of someone that Uncle Iroh's actions resulted in them dying, they have the right to confront him, just like Debbie and Art did. So here are things.
Who do we see in Avatar: The Last Airbender that has been wronged by Iroh?
No one, specifically, other than just the Fire Nation at large.
If in the live action, don't we meet somebody in the live action in season 1? The people that are taking Zuko and Iroh,
yeah,
where they're like telling him, "You're a fucking asshole," and he feels really bad about it. He does beat the shit out of them. He's got to work on himself.
Yeah. So here are a few things we can assume Uncle Iroh did not do.
Yes.
Because again, everything he did off camera, we have to assume that he did.
Correct.
He did not indiscriminately kill civilians, right? So there's what?
How do you know that? Like, okay, you're going to make the argument that it was soldiers versus soldiers. How do you know that?
I don't.
Iroh didn't bomb, like just fireball at a city.
Because I don't think Uncle Iroh would do that. And you would have to assume that he does. I think the Fire Nation probably has. And there are characters in the show that have. But Uncle Iroh, I don't think is one of them.
All right.
So here's an example. Omni-Man is literally killing hundreds upon hundreds of civilians that he knows are civilians,
yes,
just to prove a point.
Yes.
They were not fighting. They weren't resisting. He literally is just proving a point to Mark.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't think if Uncle Iroh was going into Ba Sing Se and just lighting random women and children on fire to prove a point,
yes,
then I would understand a little bit more.
Sure.
But I don't assume that he's done that. He has not called people worthless animals. That's a bit different. There are other characters in the show that do attack and murder innocent people. Sozin, he committed genocide. Sozin is Ozai was ready to commit genocide. He was about to burn the entire world down in the finale and then rebuild it. I think those characters in Avatar are a much better comparison to Omni-Man, and even they don't come close to Omni-Man.
Correct. I agree with that.
Uncle Iroh did not call his wife a pet and, quote, ultimately pointless. Uncle Iroh did not use his son to murder innocent men and children, and he did not kill billions of people. Also, there's one other point. These characters are personal characters that have been affected by Omni-Man. We made this point earlier. I don't care as much that Oliver is having more of a relationship with Omni-Man because he hasn't been personally affected as much as Debbie. Does that make sense? He knows that Omni-Man...
This is a good point.
Like, he knows that Omni-Man has done things, and he knows that Thraxa... People on Thraxa and his mom died as a result of Viltrumite's fighting, but I'm way more okay with him and Alan. Alan's been affected by a lot of Viltrumites, but he wasn't personally affected by Omni-Man. I think that it makes a lot more sense, human nature-wise, to have Debbie rightfully and satisfyingly tell Nolan how terrible he is. I wanted that. I needed that. I think it was earned. I don't necessarily need that from Alan and Oliver and those kinds of people.
100%.
Yeah, that's basically it. I just don't think a guy who routinely screams and abuses people in his family can just not be considered a bad person because they had a bad childhood. And that's the argument that I feel like people were making a little bit.
It's the line where it's, like you brought up, the best point is Homelander.
Yeah.
Homelander had an awful, awful, awful upbringing. It does not mean he is not an awful, 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 irredeemable character.
Two things can be true at once. Like, you know, I wouldn't want my mom, like Debbie. I feel like Debbie, like I wouldn't want my mom getting back together with a person
who called her a pet.
Yes, and has abused her.
And used me
just because he apologized.
As a battering ram in a train.
Yeah. I'm not saying that I can't understand that person's redemption arc and that he should never get married again or that he can't go do something else. But, like, Debbie's different. So you can still hate him, but it doesn't mean he can't change for the better and do good things after learning from his mistakes. I think just both those things can be true.
And I agree with all of that. I think that that's a good take.
I don't know.
You know, it's just, look, you have a clear understanding of that character in Invincible, a lot better than your understanding of Tom Holland in Homecoming.